Welcome to the Disc Golf Prescription Podcast, your weekly dose of disc golf. Hello and welcome to the Disc Golf Prescription Podcast. I am your host, John Nicholson. Today, I have with me the team manager for Team Dynamic Disc and Team Westside Discs, Mr. Gabriel Diaz-Serrano.
Thank you for having me, John.
How are you doing today, Gabe?
I'm doing pretty well. It's a really beautiful day here in Rock Hill, South Carolina.
It is a beautiful day. It's like sunny and 75. Reminds me of a Reliant K song somewhere back in the day.
Doesn't that just sound right? Sunny and 75.
It sounds perfect.
It's soothing.
I think we should be weathermen.
I think we should.
Weather people.
I think you're onto something there.
I think so too. Oh man. So normally I have disc golf athletes, like professionals, on the podcast. Those have been most of my interviews so far. But I've been wanting to also show the audience how you can be successful in disc golf many different ways. Yeah. You were one of my favorite people. I've had to work with you a lot, but even outside of work...
I'm sorry about that.
I get the pleasure of working with you frequently. But even outside of that, I'm happy to call you a friend.
Yep.
And you're one of my favorite people, like, you're on tour sometimes.
Yeah, you can consider me kind of on tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On tour-esque.
Yeah. I'm in a couple group chats.
That's how we determine it now. Yeah. I love it. I'm just going to get straight into, like, how did you become a team manager at Dynamic Discs?
Wow.
/ Westside.
That is a really weird story. So funny enough, I went to college for theater at the time because I got concussed playing soccer. They said you can't do contact sports. You have to do something else. So I was like, what can give me scholarship money? And at the time, I dabbled in acting and I did choir. So I went to college at Emporia State. And I started doing choir to actually do sound design and audio engineering. And they made me act on stage, And so eventually, after 2 years of doing that, they didn't have me doing any audio engineering, any sound design. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I should just kind of switch my major. So I was like, how can I get out of college as quick as possible and have a degree? And it was in the Department of Communication and Theater. So I was like, you know what? I can be a communication major. And I learned a lot of valuable skills there, a lot about just different ways of communicating in different businesses, and just human-to-human interaction. And at the time, I was serving at Applebee's while finishing off college. I got tired of working there, and I applied to work at the Dynamic Disc retail store. This is in 2019 at the time. I had just started playing disc golf September 2019, and I applied to work at the retail store, and I think in October, got the job in December. And I'd worked there for 3 months. And our CEO, Jeremy Resco, had seen me interact with customers. He'd seen me do live shopping quite a bit. And he wanted to take a chance on someone like me because after 3 months, they brought me in for an interview for team manager. And the rest was history. I've been in that job since. It's quite interesting how quickly it happened because about a week into the job, we were sent to work from home because the pandemic had just started. Yeah. And then not too long after that, Glass Blown Open was canceled. And then my first kind of tour event or tour season actually happened while there were no spectators. So in 2021 or whenever they ended up adding spectators, it was crazy to me to have that aspect because it was just us all walking on cards, really intimate little groups, no one around at tournaments. So
yeah, you entered at a very crazy time in disc golf.
That, and we went from having a small warehouse to like our warehouse is now 4 times the size of what it was. So I was like right before the disc golf boom. So I was able to kind of experience that immense growth from start to finish. Obviously, I'm not an OG person, but like right in that sweet point before the disc golf boom.
Yeah, because disc golf was like kind of, for those of you on audio only, I don't know why I always look at the camera when I talk to the audio only people. For those of you on audio only, I'm motioning something steadily going up.
Yeah.
It was kind of doing that, and then when the pandemic hit, it just went way up.
100%.
So that is awesome that you came in right at that point. What has it been like working with some of our sports like top athletes on the team?
It's been a pleasure. So for me, I actually went to college with formerly Paige Bierkus, now Paige Shu. And so I never really had that starstruck, any of the athletes that I met, I never had that starstruck moment. I just talked to them as people because, that's what they are. They're people.
Are they?
They are. And it's been a pleasure being able to learn from some of the best in disc golf. I had to learn very fast and teach myself so many things about disc golf because I had only been playing for a couple months. And so between just being able to interact with them and work with them has just been an immense pleasure from start to finish.
Awesome. What is your favorite part about being a team manager?
Ooh. I would say just going to battle for and with people. And what I mean with people is when our athletes are out on the course, I really love to be there. And the amount of times that I've had people, and I just mentioned this before we were even on, people would apologize if they were performing poorly. And I say, I'm with you, like whether you're doing good or bad, like this is what I want to do. I want to be here to support you. So going to battle with and for the people that are on our team is definitely something I've enjoyed doing. And that's whether it's interacting with our ambassadors / promoters or juniors or to our top tier. Like it's being out there, whether I'm playing an event of theirs or whether I'm on tour.
Very cool. So one more question kind of about your role with Dynamic Discs. What would be your advice to people looking to get employed by a major disc golf manufacturer? There are becoming more and more jobs on that side of disc golf. If somebody's looking to step into a role like that, what would you recommend?
I do your research. That's a huge reason why I'm as knowledgeable in disc golf as I am. I just got on the interwebs or looked at different files and I just dove deep. If you go to dynamicdisc.com, we have a portion that's dedicated to, I believe, careers. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Innova, Discraft, MVP, any of the other major manufacturers have that. If not even speaking to the major manufacturers, we have plenty of people that are supporting disc golf in different ways. Think like Zuka, Flight Towel, Whale Sacks, all those different kind of, not the manufacturers, but people that support and make disc golf what it is. And it's all about connections. I'd say more than ever, it's who you know a lot of the time. So go volunteer at a DGPT event, go volunteer at a major, do something like that, interact with people, shake people's hands, introduce yourself to people. Making connections and making your own little web of disc golf, whether it be TDs or players, will take you so far in this sport. So many people that are working in disc golf never thought they'd be working in disc golf. I'm a prime example of it. I never had thought, especially so young into disc golf. Like I'd only been playing 5 months or so.
Yep. It's not really a grassroots sport anymore, but as far as finding a job or even potentially not just a job, but a career in disc golf is still a very grassroots type thing. Like if you meet people, develop relationships, you can definitely get into the sport that way.
Yeah, and I know I don't know how other companies work. I can only speak to what I've gone through at Dynamic Discs, but we have a lot of people within our company that get promoted up from working from a retail job or a wholesale fulfillment job and work their way up within the company. I'm an example of that. So you have to start somewhere. That's the best advice I can give you.
Get started.
Get started.
All right. So before I had you on, I posted and asked people what they would like to ask. I was so mysterious. I was like, what would you like to ask
Burning questions.
A major disc golf manufacturer's team manager?
Ooh.
And as you could probably guess, the resounding response was,
sponsor me.
We want to know about sponsorships.
Yeah, let's do it.
I got to remember not to hit the table as I just hit the table. So to get started on sponsorships, in your opinion, what are some of the best ways that a player could get sponsored and kind of get their name out there?
A lot of the time when I have this conversation with people, find a niche. So many times you see people that want to get sponsored just to be sponsored. Why? You have to ask yourself, why do you want to be sponsored? Because the reality is a lot of companies are going to base it on an ROI basis, return of investment. And if you just are someone that says, I want to be sponsored, what do you gain from a sponsor? What does the sponsor gain from you? So whether it's, you don't have to be the best disc golfer in the world by any means. You could be one of the best YouTubers in the world. You can be such a great like Instagram marketer or promoter. You can have your own local pro shop. You can run tournaments. You can run clinics. One of the things I'm most proud about for me is the amount of people that I've put a disc in their hand for the first time. Any clinic I run, I'm like, how many of you have played disc golf? Raise your hand. So those are small ways. Think about what are the different ways that you can help grow the sport. And from a dynamic disc, Westside Disc Latitude 64 standpoint, that's part of what we look for in people we sponsor is what can you do or what do you want to do with growing the sport and how can we help support you and you support us?
That is an amazing answer. I like that a lot. Getting a little bit more specific in that, or not even more specific, but more towards people with higher professional aspirations of sponsorship. Do you guys look at more rating? You just kind of spoke to the community impact, so I'll skip that part. Do you look at social media, some sort of combination between rating, tournament wins, social media? What do you look at for those?
For like our touring players and above, that kind of thing?
Let's call touring players and above.
Yeah, of course. So the biggest thing, rating's a part of it. Just because we like to pull up their PDGA. We're very fortunate we have people working in the sport now like Statmando. They're doing phenomenal work being able to compare stats and all that. But the main thing, we just want to pull up their PDGA. Obviously, if they're current, that's like, oh, great. They're current. They're certified.
Be current. Be certified.
That's great, you know. The biggest thing, say that someone wants to go on tour and we've never heard of them before. And they're like, 2023, man, I'm going on tour full time. I'm hitting it big time. But then you pull up their thing and they're like 980 rated. Well, that's going to be really hard for them to play in tour events, you know? Or we can look at their 2022 season. They played 2 events. Like, what's up? So that's just a reference point for us mainly. That's a checkpoint. Then we go to the socials. You'll find this with any person trying to look to hire you a lot of the time. We want to see how you interact with people on social media. Are you a keyboard warrior? Are you one of those? Are you someone that just represents your values on a public platform? So that's kind of where we look at from there, as well as just like, how much are you going to reference disc golf? How much of a marketer are you? If you're currently sponsored by another manufacturer, how much are you pushing their disc? You know, like that's important for us to see how that player markets themselves and markets the manufacturer or their other sponsors.
So we just talked about a bunch of different attributes that can help get you sponsored or help elevate your how you look to potential sponsors. Do you see any of those attributes starting to shift in the future with disc golf becoming more mainstream? Not mainstream, but more mainstream.
I would say quality over quantity. That's a huge one. In this day and age of disc golf, you see some people have a lot of followers, but they don't have that much fan interaction per se. So that's huge. How much are your fans engaging in you? How good of a brand do you have if it's a young brand? Like, what is the potential growth into that brand? What's your goals in growing that brand? You see plenty of players on tour that stay relevant, even if they're not performing that well. I'm not going to name drop any of them, but you see it out there. And then you see players that could be performing at the highest level, but they don't really have as much of a fan base. So it's very, very strange, the nature of disc golf and just relevancy.
Yep. It's kind of all over the board. So one player could have the exact opposite mix as another, and they could both be successful.
Yep.
It's very strange right now.
I always encourage players, no matter what the manufacturer, like if you're looking to find a brand, find something that people relate to or empowers people. So a good example, and she's my good friend, Macy Vela Diaz, you know, she flexed on him a couple of years ago at Dynamic Disc Open, and everyone thought that was the coolest thing ever. You know, you don't see many FPO players on coverage just like flexing after making a big putt. And I was like, hey, why don't you go with that? You know, like that's part of you. That's part of your personality that people were like really psyched to see. And so, I mean, even her Tour Series stamp this year on her Lucid Ice Justice, she's flexing on him.
Yeah, she is.
You know, so Yeah.
Sorry, too hype.
Nah. Yep. So that's typically what I encourage people with and what we kind of look for.
Perfect. How is compensation decided for players? And with most contracts kind of being confidential, how can newly sponsored players start to gauge their value?
Yeah. So one thing that I tend to see, there's multiple dimensions to this. There's the players who might not know the business side as much. The reality is not every disc manufacturer, to no one's surprise, potentially, is just have copious amount of money to throw around, you know, especially in this time, you know, even though the disc sales have gone up, even though we're in that disc golf boom or had been in that disc golf boom, think about you have to invest as companies to be able to continue to keep up with that growth. So that doesn't mean you're flowing in cash by any means. A lot of players' compensation formally in disc manufacturers across the board is based off of disc sales per se. And so I think as the years go, you'll start to see a combination more of that, where it could be disc sales and just straight cash, direct deposit, anything like that. Or it could be one of those things where we continue to see incentivized based contracts. So it kind of varies. I'd say the gauging the value of a player ultimately just comes down to a couple things: their performance, their marketability, how they compose themselves on and off the course, and engagement. That's a huge thing. And then a willingness to work and get better. You could be the best player in the world, but if we're sending you email opportunities to go do media things or giving you phone calls and you're not responding, that doesn't help you, and it's your manufacturer trying to help you.
Okay. Well, thank you for being so candid with those answers. I appreciate it. So if you're wanting to know some of the ins and outs of sponsorship, there you go. Are you ready for the fan favorite segment?
I'm ready. Bring it.
It is time for Steph's Curious Questions. In Steph's Curious Questions, in case you guys at home, first time seeing it, in case you haven't heard the explanation of it, basically I tell Steph who's going to be on the podcast. She may or may not stalk your social media. It depends sometimes.
Ooh.
Maybe she already has 3 questions. You know Steph. And
Yep.
or Amy, Steph, Amy, whichever. There's an inside joke about Steph being called Amy. And basically, she just finds 3 questions she's curious about, and I ask them to you.
Lovely.
All right. Question number 1. If you could bring one restaurant or store to Emporia, Kansas, what would it be and why?
That is such a good question, Steph.
I said the same thing.
Ooh, honestly, it's stuck between 2 restaurants. And as much as I love my local chains, because I always go local in Emporia, give back to the community, Cane's or Olive Garden. Those are 2 places that are chain that if I'm ever in a big city or a city that has them, I'm going there.
Steph was doing this in the background.
Yeah. Their chicken strips, their toast at Cane's, they know what they're doing. And then Olive Garden, I mean, you walk in hungry, you walk out waddling. I'm not kidding. That's just how it goes. In regards to stores, you know, I'm actually fortunate. One of the stores that I would like to see there is actually coming in, Marshall's. So often do I shop for clothing there. I like to be presentable. I like to dress well. So I typically go to Marshall's just because it's not going to break my bank and I'm going to find some nice stuff there.
Yeah, and it's fun because you never know what you're going to find.
No, you never do. I've found so much there.
Okay. You were an actor previously.
I am.
Or still are. You were or are?
I would say am,
Okay.
because I have acted in community theater shows since then. And I mean, most recently this year, I was in a Dynamic Disc commercial. So I guess that kind of counts.
That's true.
You know?
Was that the, hold on, I'm going to remember it. Oh, Twice or It's Luck commercial?
That is correct.
Perfect. If you haven't checked out the Twice or It's Luck commercial, it is hilarious. I'm sure it's on Dynamic Disc YouTube.
Yes, it is. And that's accurate. I know you're going to be like, this is scripted. No, this is like straight up how Zach and I have had interactions before on and off the course.
This is the second podcast of mine that Zach Melton has been mentioned in lately. That man is everywhere.
He's going to be on here at some point, I think.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
I don't know when, though, but soon. So that was the first part of the question.
Okay.
If you could portray any part from any show, what would it be?
Any theater show?
It can be
or-
theater show. It can be a movie. It can be a TV show.
I'm going to be a nerd for a second. So growing up, I really liked watching Doctor Who.
Okay.
You know, so I would love to have portrayed a doctor in Doctor Who. I don't know what I'd be, whether I'm quirky or like stoic or anything like that, but in a realistic TV sense, Doctor Who. In regards to like a show per se,
You'd make an excellent doctor.
Phantom and Phantom of the Opera. This sounds weird, but I've been in a couple operas and I loved it. Phantom of the Opera is like not opera, but it's more musical theater-esque. And there's plenty of organ in the background. And it's like, you think like, oh, organ's boring, you know? It's not in Phantom of the Opera. It goes hard.
Organs go hard.
They do.
It here
They
first.
do.
All right. Question number 3. What is your proudest moment in life, and how does that fuel you today?
Proudest moment in life. So this is gonna kind of get a little sentimental, but when I was young, my grandma was having a battle with cancer, and I kept telling her I was gonna become a doctor. I always said I was gonna help cure her, so we had more time together. And ultimately, that obviously didn't happen. I was like 6 or 7, and she ended up passing away. And I was in front of her when she passed away, and she had an oxygen mask on. And instead of just, you know, sitting there with her last moments of life with the oxygen mask on, she took it off just to say, "I love you" to us. And that really has been the biggest impact in my life. From that moment on, I have carried love towards anything I do. And like, love is 100% how I like to lead my life due to that. Because in her last moments, she chose love. And so I just continue to try and lead by what she gave me that time ago. Yeah. So that's probably my proudest thing in life. Not obviously her dying, but just the impact that that death and that meaning that she pushed to me has had on my life. It shaped who I am as a person today.
I mean, that's a really like special moment. Like, I don't, you can ask Steph in the background, but I don't become like sentimental like easily. And
Yeah.
I was just like, I like that a lot.
Yeah, I was fighting back a couple tears right there.
This is actually a perfect segue
Yeah.
into one of the things I love that you do. Like, I follow it every week. Is you've started doing mental health Mondays on Mondays on Instagram.
Yep.
It may post to Facebook as well, but
Yeah.
I see it on Instagram. What started your mental health Monday journey?
So before I get into that exactly, I also want to shout out Chandler Fry because he also does Mental Health Mondays. Him and I are the only two that I know that do like a Monday post, at least semi-regularly. But what kind of started that is I was at a really, really dark place in my life not too long ago. It probably was like 7 months maybe when I started doing that. And one thing that I tend to see, no matter where, between males especially, is we as males aren't told or shown as often to show emotion. It shows weakness is what a lot of people teach you. It's taught and sometimes in your sports by coaches, it's sometimes taught by parents and things like that. But men are supposed to be strong and not show emotion. And if you cry, you're weak and all that. And that's not what should be. That is absolutely not at all what should happen with men. You see a lot of men go into deep depressive states, and people in general go into deep depressive states just because it's not just a male issue. Mental health issues are top to bottom everyone, you know? And so I thought, how can I break this stigma? I'm struggling and I'm an actor. You can't tell if I'm doing good or bad, you know, a lot of the time. If you really know me, you can.
That's true.
But, you know, whether it's at work or in front of my parents, no one really knows, is he doing good? Like, how's he doing? Like, you're just going to see my face. I wanted to be a part of breaking that stigma to my small crowd Obviously, I have like a small following, not a very large following by any means, but to that small following I have, I wanted to continue to push to break the stigma that you cannot share when you're in pain. Because so often we're like, let's just highlight the positives and nothing else. If we don't take time to reflect on the negatives, the hardships we've gone through in life, the positives don't matter. We have to be able to think of where we were and where we are now. That's how we learn from it. That's how we celebrate our victories. And that's how we reflect on our past. So that's really why I did it, is to break this stigma. And that's why I continue to do it. Just a small check-in. At first, it was a combination of I do it for me. I'm a pretty private person, though. So I was like, this is kind of making me push my limits a little bit. But it's mainly because I wanted to break that stigma.
Well, I, for one, really appreciate it. I'm one of those people who keeps most things like close. Very rarely do I share that side of my personal life, especially. And so I appreciate the encouragement and just being raw and vulnerable with that. And so it's very helpful. It's very encouraging to want to step into becoming more that way.
Yeah. And the other thing is, if you're stopping yourself from posting about mental health hardships and things along those lines, like, I want you to know, don't have that thought process, oh, no one cares. No one's going to see it. You know, because there was a couple times I thought that. And then I've had so many people walk up to me or message me, people that I don't really fully know well at all, open up to me and bring up the Mental Health Monday, bring up all the mental health journey. And that makes it worth it. That makes it worth it alone. Just being able to connect with that individual and have that person say, that helped me feel more comfortable in my situation, you know, or that helped me kind of come to terms with a couple things. That has made it 100% worth it. So don't hold back from expressing yourself just because you're scared of, will anyone even care?
Well, thank you for that. How would you recommend people get started on being more aware of their mental health state?
Communication. Obviously, I'm a communication major.
I was about to say
but
that.
Think about just any situation in life. People struggle to articulate or communicate what they're going through. So I'd say, like, one really good place to do it, I mean, even between my parents or my best friends, like, I open up to them and I'm open with them. This is what I'm going through. And although it's kind of scary to open up to my parents, you know, because it hits them hard. Obviously, they raised me, they love me. But being able to be that open and vulnerable with them helps you have a basis, per se. And so just, I'd say that's a good way of starting it. I also like to repost a lot of, like, inspirational quotes or mental health advocacy posts. I like to go to any suicide prevention walks that I can, or any of those public forum conversations. I find it really important to be present in those. So yeah, that's a couple options that you can do. But there's also, I recently, shout out really quick, there is a disc golf for men, or disc golf mental health for men group. It's like 89 people. You know, it's brand new, but it's in the Kansas City area. I just got added to that.
Very cool.
By JP. And it is such a cool thing. It's literally just dudes trying to tackle their mental health and coming together by playing disc golf. And like that's what it's all about, breaking that mental health stigma. And you can combine that with disc golf.
Yeah, I didn't even know that group existed. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and you'll see more groups like that. So check out some Facebook groups and see what you can find.
Yeah, find people who you do feel like you can share with, and who you feel like you can be vulnerable with, and that sounds like a great place to start.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I know that topic is, as we just talked about, hard to discuss sometimes. So yeah, I really respect that. We have a few fan questions.
Okay.
Some of them, we had more than this of fan questions, but okay. I wove some of them into the sponsorship questions because there were a lot of those.
I like it.
Paxton would like to know, what goes into designing a new mold?
Ooh. So it just kind of depends. There's a couple different things. I got to clear my throat really quick. Sorry.
You're good.
That's a part of designing a mold right there. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, it just comes down to a couple things. You can have the executive board sitting down thinking, what are we missing in our lineup, right? It could be something like that. It could be a group of our touring players being like, nah, I'm really vibing with the Explorer, but I need something a little bit more overstable, you know? So there's a couple things. There's the manufacturer thinking, are there any gaps in our lineup? There's the players giving feedback. There is a gap in our lineup. Or, I mean, sometimes we see those fan comments that are saying, Dynamic needs this, Westside needs this, something along those lines, and it can come to life. Jeremy Resco says, we're always working on something. It's true. We see that feedback so often. And so there's a couple things. The adder came out because for Westside, we were thinking we need a disc. You know, the Warhorse is nice and overstable. It's typically flatter. But what if we need a disc that had that Enforcer-esque distance that pushed a little bit further, that might have a little bit more glide, but the bite of an adder, you know? And the adder's a snake, for those of you that don't know.
Yes, it is.
And that's how it came to fruition. Or we had so many people say, I need a stable stag. You know, I love the stag, but it's a little too flippy at times. I need a stable stag. And hence the bear came out, because you needed something with a little bit more bite than the stag. So you've seen a lot of different that, and I mean, you see so many different manufacturers trying to fill out their lineup. So,
Yep. Some have a full lineup and just need to create additional discs that maybe just do slight different things, and then there are some newer manufacturers who are still trying to build a complete lineup.
And the strange thing, it's an odd situation for Trilogy, right? Because we have Dynamic, Westside, Latitude, and there are discs that fly the same throughout the three companies, but you have variety. It's very rare you'll find a mold from one of those three companies that feels exactly like it. Yeah. It can have the same exact flight, don't get me wrong.
It'll feel different.
But it's going to feel different. And so that's partially why I think the variety is a good thing.
It definitely is. In most things, I will say having a lot of choices is good.
Yep.
I don't think discs becomes that paradox of choice type thing. But
I mean, there's still discs in the Trilogy lineup I have yet to throw, and I'm trying to throw as many as possible. Just, you know, I want to be a wealth of knowledge when we have players come in, like what flies like this, or just anyone I interact with.
Perfect. Well, speaking of discs not in the Trilogy lineup,
okay,
I'm going to give this guy a full shout out. My buddy Nate Kovold from back in Texas. He asks, why haven't you made a color glow Invictus yet? Then he adds, if not Innova, ask anyway.
You know, Innova's come out with some good molds this year. I don't know why they haven't done that. And I don't know why I haven't done that. I would probably say because I don't work for Innova.
That's a great answer.
Would be a great answer.
Oh, goodness.
But I highly recommend, if you want some really solid glow, every company can have some solid glow, but our new Moonshine for Trilogy brands really has upped our glow game, because earlier, you know, it was all right. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm just being straightforward. It was all right. Now we're climbing up the ranks in the glow game. There's some really good molds out there. We don't have an Invictus. I'm sorry about that. But we do have some nice new glow molds.
I guarantee we do have some molds that fly exactly like an Invictus.
Probably
Better. That might be my bias showing. That's my bias showing. All right, moving on to a more serious question. Johnny would like to know, what is it going to take to get disc golf more publicity? What can be done to get disc golf in front of the right people?
I'm going to give a small example and then a large example. So the small example, we have our customer service rep. She is amazing. One of our two customer service reps. Her name's Melanie. And Melanie is a huge fan of Vans. We're not sponsored by Vans, by the way. I'm just going to... But... Speaking of sponsorship, she is trying to reach out, has been trying to reach out to Vans in regards to doing like a micro sponsorship or something like that, because we have quite a few athletes in disc golf that use Vans shoes.
It's true.
On tour, right? And so it starts with stuff like that, reaching out. I, for one, one of my friends, Chip, reached out to Torchy's Tacos because he knows I love Torchy's. And we were like, how can we get Torchy's involved in disc golf? So that's kind of how it starts. You just have to ask people or know the right people. Additionally, you have sources like Disc Golf Pro Tour works tirelessly to try and gain larger sponsorships at their events. And that's how they end up getting a lot of their really, really good payouts. I'm trying to remember what tournament it was that they got, like Johnsonville, the food brand Johnsonville.
I think it was Tour Championships last year.
You know? And
this year is sponsored by Barbasol.
There you go. That's how it starts. That's how you start gaining more traction, more publicity. Garmin giving some watches at Worlds might seem like a very relatively small thing, but it can turn into a bigger thing for sure in the long run. They had feather banners and tents out there at Jones Supreme. And so it all comes down to exposure and then networking. Networking is how disc golf will continue to grow. Let's wait to find out what happens at USDGC and throw pink in the tour finale, because if you have a James Conrad heroic, something like that, that pushes the sport in a way that you would be very thankful to see.
Absolutely. So I can't just ignore the dad joke that was available there.
Okay.
Reaching out for sponsorship by Vans. We have a lot of Vans on tour.
We do.
So could we get Vans?
That would be pretty nice. That'd be pretty nice. Wow.
It's not even a joke. It's so bad, but I had to do it because that'd be fun to have a fleet of Vans sponsored by Vans.
That would be.
I don't think it could ever happen.
I don't think they do that. I think they're more about shoes, skateboards, that kind of thing.
I don't understand. It's Vans. All right.
Trademark.
I think that is a great time to end the show, considering I'm out of questions and I've clearly gone way off the rails. But Gabriel, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, John. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Before you go, where can people follow you, and especially follow your Mental Health Monday posts?
Yeah, so my Instagram is G_DIAZSER. So that is G_DIAZSER, G Diaz-Serrano. That's typically where I'll post quite a bit. I'll post some of my personal stuff on there. Sometimes I post some marketing things for Trilogy Brands. Sometimes I post Mental Health Mondays. So that is a good place to follow me. I do have a YouTube. I'm not active on it. I think I've posted an In the Bag on it before. But
perfect.
Yeah.
I will post both of those in the notes, and you guys should follow Gabe. He's a fun guy.
Really quick, if he's not going to plug himself, I'm going to do it. So tomorrow, we have a new release Thursday at Dynamic Discs.
This episode will be dropping in the future, but I still like it.
Yeah, they might be available. We have Hybrid X Jonathan Nicholson Suspects dropping on the website on Thursday, 10/6. So if this drops, obviously it's going to drop after that. There might still be some available that you want to check out.
You know what? I can go ahead and get this podcast ready, get an Instagram excerpt ready.
There you go.
And we can show this disc. So yes, if you would like to grab a limited a John Nicholson limited edition Hybrid X Suspect, they will be dropping on the Dynamic Disc website October 6th.
John, I have a burning question for you. How do those fly?
Incredible.
Fantastic.
No, but really, I really, really do love this mold. I know everybody says that about their disc that's coming out, but the Hybrid X Suspect just feels amazing, and it flies at the exact stability I want a Suspect to fly at. So get you one. I'm telling you. Gabe, thank you so much for joining. Everybody watching, thank you so much for watching. If you're just listening, thank you so much for listening. I go through this conundrum at the end of every episode. If you are listening on a podcast app, please make sure to leave a 5-star review. Mm-hmm. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Tell me who you want me to interview next. Tell me what you want to talk about. I'd love to hear what you guys think.
Muchas gracias y que tienen un buen día.
We're going to leave on that one. Thank you, sir.